Preparedness informational presentation to the board by Office of Emergency Services, CAL FIRE, Nevada County Consolidated, and the Fire Safe Council. So go right ahead.
Good morning, Chair Miller, Honorable Board. Paul Cummings, County OES. We'll try to go as expeditiously as we can this morning. Our first speaker will be Deputy Chief Jim Hudson from CAL FIRE, and we'll also have Chief Jim Mathias as well. The theme for today is really just educating the board on the 2021 wildfire threat. We're also going to have presentations from Nevada County Consolidated Fire. And then lastly, we'll talk about what we're going to do to mitigate the threat with some of the work with the Fire Safe Council. So, Jim.
Well, first off, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity. First off, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this morning on behalf of Chief Estes. And our goal this morning is for myself and Division Chief Mathias is to reflect on fire season 2020 and then look at our outlook moving into this year, as well as some efforts and mitigations that we've put in place to hopefully assist us locally. So thank you for your time and opportunity. So reflecting on I think it's important that we look back on last fire season, which was obviously historic, and I just wanted to touch on some numbers that we dealt with across the state and regionally to put things into perspective for us within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit for CAL FIRE. So last year, we had almost 10,000 wildland ignitions in the state of California. Record-setting year throughout the state. Almost 4.3 million acres burned. In some cases, entire national forests were lost or nearly lost when you look at the Mendocino National Forest. Over 10,000 structures were destroyed in 2020, and there were 33 fatalities directly related to wildland fires across the state. So as we move into 2021, it's important to understand, as with the conditions that we're going to discuss, is that we just came out of the worst fire season in recorded history in California. And then moving on locally, to touch on some of the numbers that we saw across our region within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. So the Nevada Yuba Placer unit protects 875,000 acres, or 875,000 acres of direct protection area, which we are responsible for protecting. Last year, we had almost 1,000 wildland ignitions fires within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. 125 wildland fire ignitions occurred in Nevada County, totaling 780 acres. But it's important to remember, we're all very familiar with the Jones fire, that was the majority of the acreage that we saw last year in Nevada County was from a single incident. And another incident that challenged us locally outside of the Jones was the Willow incident in Nevada County. It's important to recognize that CAL FIRE, our goal every year is to make sure that we do our best to ensure that all fires, 95% of fires, remain 10 acres or less. Locally within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit, we had a 95.8% success rate. So though it was the worst recorded season in California's history, we did have meet our goals and have actually a little bit higher than normal. It's important to remember, too, as we move into this year, though, we are ahead of schedule, and I'll touch on that as we look into our outlook on what we're seeing with our fuels and acreage. Across the region, across California, I think we're all aware that we are experiencing drought situations right now that we had seen. They're not as historic as we saw 7-8 years ago, but we are moving into that. And there's a significant potential for large wildfires as we move forward. And on the following slides, we'll talk about where we are where our fuels are within the region. So as of June 1st, minimal snowpack with very little runoff, and obviously now there's pretty much no snowpack within the region. No additional rains predicted as we move in. We are predicting some monsoonal moisture, which could bring some higher than normal humidities, but could also bring us some dry lightning, unfortunately. Grass loading, which is one of the things, as we look at our fuels, usually starts in the lighter fuels and transitions into heavier fuels. One thing that comes out of a year where we don't have a lot of precipitation is the grass isn't quite as thick. If we look back a couple years ago, 3 years ago, where we had a good amount of rain, our grass crop was very significant. We're not seeing that this year. However, with the minimal snowpack and precipitation, we are not seeing the normal fuel moistures that we might see at the higher elevations for this time of year, and they are very low. All in all, we are at least 3 months ahead right now. Today, on June 22nd, we are seeing fuel moistures that we would probably see in September, so way ahead of schedule. So locally, as we transition into fire season, just some dates. As I'm sure everyone is very well aware that we suspended burning on May 24th, declared peak fire season locally also on May 24th. And a little earlier, typically we don't move to our peak or full staffing until later in June. At least that's the plan every year, and we adapt from there. But we have moved into peak fire season and staffed all our resources within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. That consists of approximately 411 employees, 27 staff fire engines, 5 Type 1 hand crews. An additional dozer was added this year. We added last year in more of reserve capacity, but now we have a 4th dozer within our unit. And part of that is it's helping us assist the reduction in fire crews numbers that we're seeing across the state. And Grass Valley Air Attack is fully staffed this year. So I mentioned hand crews. So typically across the state, we on any given day at full staffing, in years past, we would have 160 to 170 firefighting crews. We are about 80 statewide right now due to the reduction in our pipeline through the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Some of the stopgap measures we've put in place to combat that locally here, we are down 3 crews. We have the California National Guard, which is augmented with that we will have at least through the end of this year. And then we've also, like I stated, we've added that additional dozer locally to be able to assist with that. As far as our air program in CAL FIRE statewide, we have been transitioning slowly to the Black Hawk fire, or we're going to call them Firehawks because we're the fire department, but they are the Black Hawk military type spec helicopter. We've taken delivery of 9 of those, and there'll be 13 statewide, which have a little bit quicker response and flight time, which will help us get air assets over the scene. And we are in the process of transitioning to C-130s. That will probably take place by next fire season, which will be firefighting aircraft that will obviously hold 3 to 4 more times retardant as our S-2s that we have at Grass Valley. But at Grass Valley, due to the length of the runway, and we will continue to utilize S-2s out of that region. So that's where we're at, really, and it's important to know that right now we're about 523 acres ahead of where we were this date last year as far as acres burned within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit, which is only about 25 ignitions more. However, we've already had a couple large fires within right on the border of Nevada and Yuba County, Placer, around the Camp Far West area, the Intenco fire, which has attested a lot of that. It was and then we are getting what we call extended attack incidents. They're not going to be your week-long fires, but 2-3 days of commitment. We are starting to see those. So we are prepared, as always, as we transition into fire season. We are staffed, and at this time I'd like to turn it over to Division Chief Matthias to talk about some fuels reduction efforts, specifically the Ponderosa West here in Nevada County. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Hudson, Chair Miller, and all the other supervisors. Thanks for giving me the time to bring it back down to our unit and specifically into Nevada County. So as you're well aware, Nevada Yuba Placer, we've talked about it a whole bunch of times. We had 2 priority projects in our unit. So there was the North Fork shaded fuel break right around the American River in Placer County. And as you see on your slide there's about 900 acres of that roughly that have been done. And that part of the portion of the priority project is complete. The same can be said for the Grass Valley West Defense Zone, our North Ponderosa Grass Valley West Defense Zone, is the 900 acres of that, a little bit more. Actually, we're about 1,000 acres with about 100 more to go, and we have a few of the resident homeowners that we're still waiting on permissions to come in and treat their property. But as far as the priority project part of that entire project, it's completely done. So in addition to that, here in our unit, we've completed 820 acres of private land clearing. So that's reducing the fuels on, obviously we have a bunch more to go, but that's a good start for us. 800 hazard piles have been burned through 2021, that winter time that we're up to right now, and probably a few more than that since we've had a little bit more time. Obviously, we're not actively burning piles right now, but when we clear the land, we have to have something to do with that stuff. So in the summertime right now, while we have our crews out there and they're not fighting fires, they're still actively engaged in reducing fuels. And what they're doing is they're cutting down a lot of the brush and making piles. And so that's what that number is reflected there of, is in the wintertime, we go back to those areas, and although they're partially treated, we complete complete them after that. So 800 hazard piles. So what we're doing on the east side, because Nevada County is a very large, expansive geographic area, we want to focus on some of the stuff that is happening on the east side. And we have a fire engine that we have staffed there for the last 2-3 years that has been 24/7 staffed over on the east side out of our Truckee station, and they've been actively involved in reducing fuels over there. So some of the tallies or totals are right there for you. 712 hazard piles burned on SRA in the Tahoe region. That's a significant number of work or amount of work that's been done in that area. 52 acres treated in other hazard areas outside of that Tahoe area, and 97 hazard trees that we're going out there and reducing so they won't fall on homes, they won't fall across fire lines or fire breaks that we've created, and the dead standing trees won't be receptive fuel beds for any embers that are burning through the area. And hopefully, the biggest hope is to keep them out of our power infrastructure. So very important work that's happening there. In addition to that, we have a fourth dozer that was going to be a reserve dozer for us when any of our other dozers broke down. But what we've done, because we have so much work to do, so much potential, such a dry year, we're going to staff that fourth dozer whenever it's available. So we should have 4 dozers in our unit. The natural place to put them is on high hazard fire days to move them up to Truckee, because we already have one in Dobbins, one in Nevada City, and one in Auburn that spreads out pretty well through the counties. But like we've discussed earlier, Nevada County is a very large area, and it's a long response time for that heavy equipment to come from either Auburn or Nevada City to get over to the east side into the Tahoe Basin. You can imagine what a drive that would be if you were hauling a dozer behind you. So we want to make sure that on high hazard days that's covered. Moving on to the next one, please, Paul. So the red flag warning program. We want to be really careful with that and make sure that we're not sending out white noise or like the little boy that cried wolf. I think it's a great thing that OES supplied us with those flags. It gives a little bit of community education. It's not just at our fire stations in Nevada County, it's at a lot of the other local government fire stations in Nevada County. When you see those flags go up, the idea is to educate the residents to make sure that they are doing the best things that they can to be ready to go, part of the Ready, Set, Go program, and that they're very cautious with anything that could start fires. Great cooperative program. We've been doing a lot of evacuation and planning efforts. We go to community meetings that I see you all at all the time, and we're very happy to do that because of the cooperative efforts. It's not only an effort by Nevada County, it's not an effort by CAL FIRE, it's not an effort just by OES, it's a combined effort with our local government fire agencies and all of those other entities that I talked about. And we're very proud of that. Grant funding 2020 and 2021. I think that probably some of your other folks are going to tell you what we've applied for, but our job is to foster those grants that you've written and usher them through the process of CAL FIRE fire prevention grants and forest health grants. And I'm sure that they'll let you know what those are. But we've looked at them all here locally. We've worked in conjunction with your OES, been in contact many times with them about what we should and shouldn't write for grants, and or what you should and shouldn't write for grants, and where our priorities are operationally. So I think that they have a good list of grants that they've applied for, and hopefully we, Chief Hudson, myself, we can foster them through the Board of Forestry and get you some good, successful grants to have some money to do that work. We're very impressed with the Fire Safe Council. They've been a terrific cooperator. I'm sure that they'll report out on how many fire-wise communities they have, but we're always battling with first, second, or third place in the state of California. And for a county with a population of Nevada, I think that we are very successful compared to many other larger counties that have more resources, money, and people to be able to execute those fire-wise communities. So I think we've been doing a great job, and that's pretty much it for me. Thanks for your time, and I hope we have a great year.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for your time. I just wanted to reiterate that, and on the CAL FIRE side, we're happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for CAL FIRE?
One quick one.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming you're working closely with forestry and the Forest Service and all the other places that, I mean, there's no lines out there in the trees between the jurisdictions. So if you just say a few things about that.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, especially this time of year. We have collaborative efforts with all our allied agencies, the National Forest, parks, our local government cooperators. But this is a very busy time of year for us up until when we really start getting active fire season going is weekly, daily, we are meeting with our cooperators, and that is a big focus of every May and into June of every year. And that collaboration is imperative, and we ensure that it takes place always.
Thank you.
One comment, I was just up at RCRC at Mammoth, and Wade Crowfoot was the featured speaker, and I don't know if you have heard, but one of the proposals is that they're going to regionalize wildfire funding, or they're proposing to regionalize wildfire funding. How they're planning to roll that out, I have no idea. It's an interesting concept, but I don't know if everyone could play fair in the sandbox on something like that. But rather than the funding coming directly from the state, they're going to send it to regions where those regions are. I have no idea, and I don't know if you've heard of that proposal, but I sent the presentation to Allison, and so she has it, and I might send it to you just so you have that in your informational box. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so.
Sure. Dan? Sorry, Dan.
Oh, Ed, there you are.
Chief, you mentioned 820 acres of private land. How do you determine you're going to go onto private land?
That's an excellent question. We take those shovel-ready projects. It's kind of like designing which grants we're going to go after. We have to look at what we can actually do, what we have the capacity to do, and what actually makes good sense operationally. So really it comes down to the funds available, the opportunities that we have, and the willingness of the homeowner, because we can't go on anybody's private land without their permission. So like we have Firewise communities, for instance, that will ask us to come in and help reduce the fuels around their property. So that's what we're doing, is we're taking shovel-ready projects and we're committing resources to that. A great example would be right around the fairgrounds, that whole area off of McCourtney. There was a HOA that asked us to come in and help. They had a great project, and so we went in and reduced fuels between the BLM property and their private lands through multiple homeowners' lots.
Wonderful. So the Firewise community is the main resource for that type of thing.
It's a great way for people to get together and design a unified project where we can get the most bang for our buck.
Right. And I know you guys have discussed this before, but I'll bring it up again. Why can't we expand the red flag warning? I know you said we have to be very careful with it, but
Right.
I think about it. I drive by Consolidated on 49, and granted, I know when there's a fire, a red flag day, but if there were flags down at the entrance into Alta Sierra or into Lake of the Pines, it might have a greater impact.
You mean like put more flags up? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Great idea.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you guys can discuss it.
Hardy, I see you're biting a bit.
Thank you for the presentation. I just had a quick question on the aviation front. Is the CAL FIRE's strategic outlook to continue to expand aviation services and firefighting apparatus in the aviation side?
I would say our goal right now is to modernize it, and that's what we've been working on, moving away from the Hueys that have been used for 40 years now, post-Vietnam, and looking at the larger helicopters with more capabilities and larger tanks, as well as the fleet more retardant. And then obviously we are always utilizing contracts. We have the very large air tankers or the jet powers that we run out of some of the larger air bases, McClellan, Victorville, and then also really looking at a drone program that's starting to roll out, and that's more of recon-based at this point, informational, as well as the potential even here locally. We are hopeful that we'll be receiving an exclusive use contract helicopter to assist us locally for this summer also. And we should have final word on that here very shortly, but all indications are it could be here as early as July 1st.
Exciting. Yeah, we have a great airport and there's capacity, obviously we want to work with you. If there's capacity needs you have that are unmet at our airport, we'd love to have that conversation. There's space and great aeronautical capacity and resources there to help you, help our county and our region.
A great relationship with the airport here, and with our interagency air base there with the Forest Service, and it's just been a pleasure to be there for as long. I mean, we've been there for a very, very long time, and its collaborative efforts has been great.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, for sure. Because we have a helicopter that comes to truck you from on the Forest Service side, but it,
Yep.
It's there for a couple of days and then it disappears for the rest of the summer on whatever campaign's going on. But one final question, is there anything we can do as elected officials to help you complete your mission to protect our community? Messaging or anything, please reach out.
Thank you very much.
Sue?
Well, I just would echo what everyone says, I just think the CAL FIRE and our fire services and this team is just amazing. I mean, I've watched you in action in 2 fires already in my district, and I'm ever thankful for the collaboration that we have here. We just have to keep educating. I hear a fire just started the other day from a weed eater. I mean, we just can't get the messaging out enough, and our first idea is to keep our first responders safe, and I don't know, I just can't thank you enough. I'm probably like one of your biggest rooters. Yeah. Go CAL FIRE and fire services. I think you guys are tremendous, and what our county has here and the way they collaborate with OES, our sheriff's department, and Forest Service, it's really, it's paramount to what a lot of people have. So keep up the great work, and thank you so much.
Okay, any other comments? Questions? Paul?
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next speakers will be from Nevada County Consolidated. We've got Chief Jim Turner, and we've also got Fire Marshal Terry McMahon that'll talk about the 2021 fire season in Nevada County Consolidated.
Chief?
Chair Miller, honorable supervisors, executive staff, good morning, and thank you for having me here this morning. For those who I have not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Jim Turner. I'm the fire chief for Nevada County Consolidated Fire District. I've had that pleasure for about the last going on 8 years now. Born and raised here, so a lot of ties with this community. So good morning to all of you. This morning I'm just going to take an opportunity and kind of do a quick overview of our district and what we're doing proactively to mitigate wildfires within the community. The Nevada County Consolidated Fire District was established back in 1991. Prior to that, there were 13 little fire districts throughout western Nevada County, and since that time, we've brought several of those together, forming the district. We currently have 4 staff stations and 1 joint staff station with the city of Grass Valley. Our jurisdiction covers about 143 square miles of Nevada County, so we are the largest district. And we do have it's a full-time staff Department of Fire Prevention, which I have my Fire Marshal Terry McMahon here with me today, and Deputy Fire Marshal Patrick Mason, who will not be present today. We run over 3,500 calls for service on an annual basis. Those are individual calls, but working with what we call the joint operational area, this year will exceed 11,000 responses, meaning that for incidents of vegetation fire, we'll send more than 1 resource to it, trying to get enough personnel and equipment to effectively mitigate the issue. Next slide, please. During the 2020 California fire season, our district had 22 responses out of county, which equated to over 18,594 personnel hours assigned to Master Mutual Aid. Master Mutual Aid is one of the greatest things that we've established within the state of California. What it allows us to do is provide resources to our neighboring agencies, pretty expedient, and then also know that if we're in a time of need within this community, we'll have that reciprocal value. Fortunately, during the Jones Fire, which was the largest fire we had in western Nevada County last year, our district, we only sustained 1 residential structure loss down on Nisham Gulch. Crews did very active work with the assistance and tight working relationship with CAL FIRE and the other jurisdictions within the county. Some of the things we're doing for the 2021 fire season. July 1st, we'll be adding 9 additional seasonal firefighters. These firefighters are academy graduates. They have minimal experience, but they've got a heart for what we do. We're bringing on 9 that will allow us to hold those personnel on until the end of November, which allows us to increase our staffing up to 3 persons on our engine companies. Normally, we run full-time with only 2. We have numerous personnel within our organization. We have a state-recognized certification program. So when we do master mutual aid or activation for overhead assignments, we have numerous individuals who are certified to fulfill those positions to help out on major incidents. One of the things that I can't stress enough, and I've heard we spoke about it this morning here, is the ongoing relationship with our allied agencies, which makes our operations absolutely seamless. If you get onto one of these incidents and you look, and there may be 10 different patches out there, but you look at the quality of the work, the relationship that our personnel have from whatever agency within this community, it is absolutely seamless. They do an exceptional job with a minimal amount of personnel. These next 2 items are 2 of the things that we need to think about for the future that we're concentrating in within our jurisdiction and also, our cooperative efforts with the county, is we do have a shortfall in limited number of personnel, and we base that on National Fire Protection Association 1710. And what they say is, on a working structure fire, we should have a minimum of 15 personnel. And that's, a lot of times you'll see the questions come up from, constituents within the community, why are we seeing so many fire engines going to an incident? It's because we're attempting to get that number of personnel to there. We're equipment rich, but personnel poor. So like I said before, we have the luxury of having, 4 stations being involved in a joint operational agreement, which gives us 7 stations, but still that only equates to about 14 or 15 personnel. And it gets us to the minimum of what we need. But the downfall with that, and that's that next item there, the concern, is what we call depth and coverage. We have the personnel in place if we rely on our mutual and auto aid agreements to effectively mitigate an emergency incident, especially a structure fire or vegetation fire. Where the concern lies that we have to be very cognizant of, and that's what we make sure our staff is paying attention to, is what they call depth and coverage. What happens if a second incident occurs while that first one's going on? Then we do have to strictly rely upon mutual aid from out of the area, which delays the response. So those are some of my focuses throughout my next couple of years with the district, is figuring out ways how we can enhance staffing, how we can enhance the backfill to give us that depth of coverage. I talked about us having a full-time staff Department of Fire Prevention. And some of the things that I'm very proud to bring forward to the board today is our partnership with the County of Nevada for the management of the Defensible Space Inspector Program. The relationship with CAL FIRE and the County of Nevada with the DSI program has allowed us, I've got some charts, I apologize, that are not on this slide, but the amount of inspections our personnel are doing out there, quality inspections, and the education is just tremendous. If you look at the mapping for, just for example, Alta Sierra, it almost looks like a severe lightning storm went through there with so many dots on there of the accomplishment of full inspections they've done on the property. So a great program that I just see enhancing in the future. The next thing I want to talk about, and this can be a controversial topic in today's world, is the unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones. We actually have 3 of them within our organization, and I want to talk about the positive things that have allowed us to do with this new type of equipment. One is we're responsible for a lot of technical rescue down at the river. On a typical day, if we go down to the river and we have to locate somebody, it could be anywhere from 10 or 15 minutes for our personnel to get outfitted and start that search. And as you know, time is critical when you've got somebody trapped in a river. Maybe their head's above water, maybe it's not. With this drone program and working closely with state parks, and then also with the Grass Valley ECC, making sure that we're in coordination with aircraft, it allows us to immediately get eyes up in the sky to start a search looking for those victims and identifying what we're gonna need to effect that rescue. The other utilization that was actually stumbled upon was during defensible space inspections. We're finding out that some of the vacant properties that we have within Western Nevada County, the owners reside out of state. It's very costly for them to make that trip in, to meet with our inspectors, to mitigate the hazards on the property. So we identified a program where under the property owner's request, and we have to really strict guidelines of staying within property lines and so forth, is we will go out and do aerial photography of the property. We send it to the individual out of state, let them know what the violations are. They actually contract with somebody, have the work done. We'll go out and refly it, showing that the hazards have been mitigated, and we move forward from there. We've had a tremendous success with the program, but I just have to caution, there are very, strict guidelines we have to adhere to, so we're not violating people's privacy on that. So just a great program that's available now in the county. I talked earlier a little bit about our technical rescue. Technical rescue involves swift water, high angle, low angle. And then one of the partnerships we just established within the last years with the California Highway Patrol on a program called a Rescue Technician Program. This program allows the California Highway Patrol with their helicopter to utilize one of our personnel who are trained to go on board that airship with them to effect a rescue anywhere in Western Nevada County or the neighboring agencies. What it allows for the operators on the CHP helicopter is having confidence and having experience with those individuals, knowing they're trained in their capabilities. So it's been a great partnership. We've effected 7 rescues in the short time that we've been involved with the program, all very successful. And that includes a successful mission on a nearby wildfire where we had some individuals with ankle injuries and heat injuries. One of the things that I'm very conscious of is we are financial stewards of taxpayer dollars. How can we do things in the future with rising costs without putting the burden of cost on the taxpayers? So one of the things we've implemented this year is a new rescue vehicle that is equipped with water, 150 gallons. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everything we do. But what this piece of equipment has allowed us to do is our typical big fire engines you see going down the road are anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million. This piece of equipment was about 1/3 of that cost, actually 60% less. And it allows us capability of getting into remote areas that otherwise our personnel would have to walk into and delay, both fire suppression and medical rescue. One of the things that we noticed was a study we did on the large fire engines, that it was costing us about $4.25 for every mile we ran those. And if you look at our jurisdiction, we're at about 80% medical aid. So we're sending a very large piece of equipment to something that you could really effectively do with a smaller piece. So what we're seeing is less than about 50% per mile cost on this vehicle. So a savings to the taxpayers, and then it also has allowed us to push the replacement out further on our large fire apparatus. So we're always looking at ways to try to make that dollar go a little bit more. And again, on behalf of the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District, we'd like to thank the County of Nevada for their ongoing and exceptional relationship that is fostered between our agencies. I cannot tell you how much it's allowed us to advance our organization and give a better product to our constituents. So thank you on behalf of the district.
Yeah, it's been nice to see the development of Consolidated since you took over, Jim, and with Terry's work as a fire marshal. So, thank you. And any board questions, Ed? You've got Consolidated to protect you.
I'm good, Chair Miller. Just good report, Chief.
Thank
And I
you.
appreciate those medical calls, even though they are on the big truck.
Supervisor Hall.
Yeah, thank you for your excellent work again this year. I'm thrilled to hear you're getting 9 more seasonal firefighters. Whew. I'm sure you want more, but that's huge. And then also the Ford 550, that just seems like such a great innovation, especially for our rural area. I'm guessing you're gonna want more of those, so it'll be interesting to see how often you end up using that, but that just seems like a great addition to your toolkit.
It is, and we've been successfully selected by OES that we're receiving. Actually, this week, we're picking up they call them a Type 6, but the same kind of vehicle that is sponsored by OES, and that'll be stationed out of our Station 88, located in Lamar Meadows and 49. So we'll have a second one with our fleet within
great.
the next week.
Great, thank you so much. Good luck this year.
Thank you.
Hardy?
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Chief Turner. One quick question. How do you balance the mutual aid requests when it's fire season, you're sending, you have to balance the priorities here and then also with those neighboring agreements? Is it challenging or is it worked out well so far?
That's a great question. One of the things we have is an internal policy that we will not go below 1/3 drawdown. So with our staff of about, we're about 42 individuals. We pay very close attention, and that, make sure we take into account that if we've got people off on, vacation, sick leave, those type of things. But our number one priority is making sure our staffing is fulfilled here in the county. And there's times where we're unable to fill a request, but we always try to meet the minimums that other agencies are requesting, and that way we've got that continued reciprocal value.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. And let us know if there's anything we can do to help as well.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for your support of the community, and good luck this fire season.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hook?
Thank you. I guess that's just most, and I think what's interesting is just keep educating people. And I wish the community realized how important it is. Sometimes when we look at taxes and all the things we do, if they just followed you around your shoes for a day. I think that's the challenging thing. It's not just always about fire. Rescue plays into this. I don't know how many times I've already heard about the fire rescue or the rescues you had to do on the river. And you guys are so much more than just a consolidated fire district. And I just hope our community listens in on these conversations as we continue to educate. And how blessed this community is, even as shorthanded sometimes as we are, what it could be, and the resilience we would have with more firefighters on board. So I just commend you all for the work you do with what you have, because it's important. And Fire Marshal Terry, thank you. You just, all you're doing, I mean, there's so much go on this. We have a house fire, whether it's arson, there's so many things that are entangled in your duties that are far beyond what people see on a daily basis. So I just thank you all very much.
Well, it's CAL FIRE and Consolidated. They're out in the sticks, and so I appreciate that relationship that's developed between the agencies, because for Nevada County, it is absolutely critical. Paul?
Thank you, gentlemen. Our last but not least speakers will be from the Fire Safe Council. They've got a short, I think, 5-minute presentation. We've got the Executive Director, Jamie Jones, and then we also have Ms. Billy Spearing to talk about what we're doing to mitigate the wildfire threat with some of their
Great.
programs.
Jamie?
Good afternoon, Chair Miller. Good morning. It's morning, right? And honorable, am I on? Yeah. And honorable Board of Supervisors. My name is Jamie Jones, Executive Director of Fire Safe Council. It's so nice to see everybody in person and faces this time around. So I'm happy to see everybody. Fire Safe Council this year has once again, and with partnership with OES and Northern State Air Quality Management District, almost completed. We have one more event coming up on Friday for our Green Waste event. But we took in 4,900 drops this year at our Green Waste event, which was in 2 weekends. If you remember, last year's event was 6 weeks, and we took 10,000 drops in. So those numbers are kind of staggering considering how many people have participated for this year's event. In addition to our green waste programs, we continue to run our fuel reduction projects and programs. Most specifically, as Chief Matthias mentioned, the Ponderosa West Grass Valley Defense Zone, which is nearing completion. We have about 1,000 acres to be treated still, and a few homeowners that are still waiting to sign on. And so we're hopeful that we'll be finishing that project up here in fall. Additionally, outside of the Ponderosa West project, I've identified and worked on many other applications for funding for both the Lake Wildwood Field Break project as well as the Deer Creek Field Break projects. And in partnership with OES, we've applied for more green waste funding, chipping funding, and we've applied for a large program through the Forest Health for Forest Service lands to be prescribed, burned, and treated. So we're excited about those applications in the queue, and we continue to look for appropriate funding mechanisms to help us achieve all of these programs and projects that are so desperately needed in our area. The Fire Safe Council has completed almost 570 defensible space advisory visits, educating landowners about defensible space requirements. In addition to that, we have done 135 defensible space and home hardening visits through our low-cost defensible space clearing program, where homeowners have an opportunity to take, if they don't qualify for access and functional needs income limits, they're allowed to utilize the low-cost defensible space clearing programs, and that's been highly successful. And I think in part that's with our partnership with OES. I think inspectors have been recommending Fire Safe Council as a resource in order to help them achieve their defensible space and home hardening. Last year, we were able to complete 15 homes under the Access and Functional Needs Clearing Program, and an additional 15 homes through the county's funding, and an additional 15 through PG&E's foundation program. And we're hopeful that we can start working on the list of the 300 folks that are currently on the Access and Functional Needs waiting list through the FEMA funding that should be forthcoming. Our chipping crews have done 600 residential chipping jobs this year. It is an 8-week wait, and we have 2 trucks running. So there is a demand out there, and we are trying to meet that demand. The residents are motivated, and they're completing their defensible space activities, and so they've kept us very busy this year. So we continue to grow and define programs that prepare our community for wildfire, and this includes increasing staffing and resources. We now have 27 staff members that either work in the field or in the administrative office, and we do have open positions still that we're trying to fill. And in addition to that, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs without the many volunteers that help at events like Green Waste or in the Defensible Space Advisory Visit Program. We have about 70 volunteers that consistently help in that program and help us achieve those numbers. The big takeaway, I think, for this year is our Firewise USA Communities program. It continues to be a very popular and successful program. We have currently, as of yesterday, we have the 3rd largest number of communities in the state, 4th in the nation. When you look at per capita, we have 60% of our residents living in a Firewise community or in a Firewise community in training, and it continues to grow. It seems like every time we get a couple off the list, we get more who are interested, which is a great thing. It means that our education and information is getting out to the public, and they're hearing the message about being prepared for wildfire. Last year, we did 17 new certified Firewise communities. We had 14 pending that are waiting for some sort of community participation back so that they can be approved. And we renewed 44 of the existing Firewise communities. We did 4 revamps. We have communities that are going to have to be split due to size, and so we'll be working with those communities. We have more this year, but we completed 4 last year. But the staggering numbers really is the participation from the residents in these Firewise communities. Last year, these communities put up $736,887 in funds spent for, that was $9 million. Did I say that right? It was $9,736,887 in funds of wildfire prevention activities, defensible space clearing, home hardening in their communities. They put over 180,000 working hours in and cleared 90,000, almost 91,000 cubic yards of vegetation removed. So it is really great to see the communities buy in and the success of these programs being disseminated out with the community. I think that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you, Jamie. I'd like to thank all of our presenters today for their partnership and collaboration with OES and for what they've all done to really reduce the wildfire threat. I hope the board can see that we're doing everything we can, and I think that we're ready for the 2021 wildfire season.
Well, you said this was going to be an informational item, and it certainly was, Paul. So it's good information, good updates from all the departments and agencies, and the Firewise Council also. Jamie, on the home chipping program, do they leave those chips there at the residence? Because I went by a chipper the other day at a residence. So do they leave the chips there, or do they take them?
So currently, they have the option to pile or broadcast. Most people choose to leave them on site, and then we ask that they disperse them within a certain depth, so that they don't pose a fire danger and they're not placed within the 30-foot zone of their homes. But there is an option for some folks to remove them. I know there's certain communities that have CCNRs that require they're removed. So there's both options, but most people choose to leave them on their parcel.
Does a Firewise community have a priority on the chipping program?
Members of the Fire Safe Council have priority chipping. Firewise communities also have a membership program where they can, most of the time they do it in a homeowners association or property owners association, and they'll do a request in a community format.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other board members have questions for
No,
Jamie?
but I would just say for Jamie too, so Fire Safe, you can be a member of Fire Safe Council, go to the website, and you fill out your little application, and there you go. You do your membership application, so if you do need that chipping, it would be available. And I'm just ever impressed, and I just want to put a shout out to the people, they're all out there doing their job. So if you got a neighbor there that's not, take a look at what your neighbor's doing, and let's all engage in it. That, we have our vegetation ordinance that we kind of go by and try and help people, and we've got the veg team out there working on defensible space. So remember about your neighbors while you're out there. Be a part of it. Be a part of the solution, not a part of the complainers. Be a part of the solution. Because you got a team out there working for us 24/7 between Fire Safe Council, OES. We're working, making all these different, we're finding evacuation zones, but let's make our place safe. Be a part of the solution. I just want to throw that out there because I just get complaints about that all the time, and let's all do our part. That's what it's about, being a community. Let's be fire safe. Sorry.
Sue Hook PSA. Anyone else have any comments? Closing statements?
I will, yes.
Okay, Heidi.
Yeah, thanks. Jamie, you've had a huge challenge expanding the Fire Safe Council dramatically in the last few years, which it can be difficult. So thank you for working on that. A fully well-functioning council is going to be essential to moving forward. And just on the membership issue, I just hope we're helping some of the elderly who aren't familiar with computers to become members, if that really is a requirement, Yeah.
One of the benefits of our membership program this year is that we are helping people who aren't very computer savvy come into our office, and we'll allot time to help them upload their important documents to a USB drive or to put it into the fireproof pouches so that they're able to travel with those documents and really be prepared with their go bags. So
Great.
it's one of the services that we've had in our expanded membership.
Great, thank you. And Paul, tremendous, tremendous work. Thank you, as always.
Just thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time you took. And
Thank you, sir.
Mike, we're taking a 5-minute break. Understood. Okay, all right.